Welcome back to another episode of The Art of Volunteering. I'm your host, Stormy Bell, and today I'm very excited about our conversation. My friend, Jan Michener, who is the founder and executive director of AHHAH, which is Arts Holding Hands and Hearts, is my guest. And we've been trying to get together for a while, so I'm just very excited that we're going to sit and talk. Welcome, Jan.
Welcome, Stormy. I am so grateful to be here with you.
That's awesome. All right. Jan is the founder since 2013 of the Arts Holding Hands and Hearts. AHHA's mission is building equity and justice by empowering youth, strengthening families, and mobilizing communities through arts, literacy, and mindfulness. She graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor's degree in theater arts from the State University of New York in 1978. She was a professional actress in New York City for 18 years. She received her Master's of Education from Widener University in 2000. She taught in the Unionville Chadds Ford School District and then became a teaching artist with the Philadelphia Youth Playwrights and Philadelphia Theater Company before starting AHHAH. I love it. You are a woman of many talents. That's amazing. So let me just go back into your thoughts. Like, what type? You were an actress. Like, what did you? Plays, movies, commercials?
I did everything. I did, plays. I did soap operas. I did commercials. I did a horror film in which I got my head shot off and axe in the chest. When I work in the detention center, that is, when we ask what's something someone would be surprised to know about you, and I say, well, I got axe in the chest and my head shot off once. And they're like, whoa. But I got to say, Stormy, what I always wanted to do was be on Sesame Street.
Oh, who knows? You still have time.
I know. But it's still a dream.
Oh, I love it. All right, Jan, let's dive in. Talk to me about AHHAH. Like, what is your mission? And I know there's so many different parts to AHHAH, so just share about it.
It's my baby.
Okay.
And what it is to end, the big dream is to end the cradle to prison pipeline of children of color and children of poverty. And what it is combining my background in both theater and education and working with youth. I always, even though I started at the Chester County, at Chadds Ford Unionville School District, that's a very well-to-do school district, where my love and passion was working in inner city schools. And when I was a teaching artist with Philadelphia Young Playwrights and Philadelphia Theater Company, I started a program called Hands Across the Ages, bringing children and seniors together to share their stories and to pick an issue that's important to them to give voice to in the community. And my last year of doing that, I was working with Philadelphia Senior Center and World Communications Charter School. And they picked bullying in schools and that we need more arts education, not more guards with guns. And their piece was called I Am Living, and it was right before the Sandy Hook incident. And young and old shared how they had either been a bully in school or been bullied, and how they shared their stories and became advocates right then to stop the bullying. Well, 3 weeks later, they closed 3 of the inner city schools I was working in. Several weeks after that, they took away funding for the arts in the other schools I was working in. And I said, if you do not believe children in poverty deserve an arts education, and you're just going to funnel them into the prisons, then that's where we need to go. And they say, well, we don't go there. And I say, well, I guess I'll just have to start my own organization. So that's how AHHAH was started. And it was started bringing arts and mindfulness programs to youth that are incarcerated and at the Chester County Youth Center. And when I found out, we started incarcerating children at 10 years old.
Mm.
And that when I started diving deeper and finding out that for-profit prisons look at third grade reading scores to decide where they'll put the next prison in 10 years, and that 85% of our youth that are incarcerated are literate deficient, and 70% of our adults that are in prison can't read above fourth grade. I said, we need to do something to stop this, that we're spending more money to incarcerate than we are to spend on education. But more than that is a lot of the youth, almost all of the youth, what they have in common, they're come from poverty, at the Chester County Youth Center. And when you hear their stories and you hear about the trauma, you understand much of the behavior is that of survival. And when you find out what their past, we've got to stop asking what happened to them, what they did, but instead what happened to them that allowed them to be there in the first place. And what can we do as a community and a society to stop the mass incarceration of children and to build communities of caring and communities of support where our children, instead of surviving, can thrive, because so many of our youth right now are hurting.
I think you're going at that in a very incredible way, starting with babies. You want to share about that?
About what?
About babies? You're starting at like birth. You're starting at
Well,
the ground roots to make this
we
change happen.
my first grant when I started AHHAH was a 21st century grant at Scott Middle School, and to start an after school trauma sensitive yoga and playwriting group. And while I was there, is I found out kids in Coatesville at Cowan Elementary were being suspended at kindergarten. And I realized, wait a minute, by middle school it's too late. We need to work with children at the preschool and age. And we started as a volunteer, because I didn't have funding for it. We started a storytime yoga program for children, preschool kids at the Coatesville library in the community room. And luckily, one of the grandmothers that was bringing her granddaughter worked with Head Start. And they said, well, can you bring the program to Head Start? And so we started a program at Head Start and with Early Start. And then I started diving deeper and found out that children in an impoverished house home, on an average, are exposed to 30 million less words by the time they're 5 than a child in a middle class or more affluent household. So they're already arriving at kindergarten 2 years behind in literacy development, but also that and it's one reason why there's suspension starting at the kindergarten level. But it's a lot of children in the community we were working were also exposed to trauma. And when you've lived in an impoverished community, I say there's the 3 ACEs: the adverse childhood experiences, the adverse cultural experiences, and adverse community experiences of the trauma of just poverty alone. And so, how do we address that? So, in 2015, we started the Pop-Up Lending Library campaign of getting books in the hands of children in Coatesville for their 100th anniversary. I said, what if we could have 100 pop-up lending libraries and put decorate bankers boxes and put it in every place children gather, and at the laundromats and the pizza shops, and then work with the community of building. I found out about the free little lending library, but those cost, like back then, $350 each to build it. We had no budget, So I went to the community and reached out and said, I felt like Henny Penny, who will help us build these things? Who will help us paint these? Who will help us gather books and who will help take care of them? And when I first started, people said, "Well, you can't do that. This is Codesville. We need security cameras, to make sure they don't steal them." And I said, "They can't steal them. We're giving them away." And what became, it's well, we can't do that, we can't do that. It became a big thing where I reached out to schools and said, well, let's have a little contest. Each school, I will get the material. And I worked with Bob Beggs of Good Works, who, if you have not interviewed him yet, he is like a saint. I love him so much because he built our first model of what it looked like. And then we reached out to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and we had community building sessions and got the materials and worked with them on building, and then reached out to artists and different groups to say, let's paint them together, and had painting sessions. And my sister had just died, and her best friend lived in California, and I shared what we were doing. And Diane was walking down the street in California where she lived, and there was a used bookstore going out of business. And she bought all the children's books, 5,000 books, and mailed them to me. And those were the first books that went into our pool stations. And we've gone from, where you can't do that to we now have over 100 of the outdoor pop-up lending libraries in Coatesville, in Kennett, in Oxford, in Avondale. And since 2015, we've collected and distributed over 300,000 books. And this program is totally 100% run by volunteers. And then volunteers of our donation stations. And now we work with the CCIU, the Chester County Intermediate Unit Discover Teams, which works with children with special abilities. And in fact, I was just today speaking to them because they go once a week to our donation station in Coatesville at the CCOIC. And the children, they're teenagers, with special abilities. They sort the books, they label the books, and then they go around. There are stewards going around each week, refilling the boxes in Coatesville and Kennett area. And I love them so much with all my heart of what they're doing. But I can go on. Once the book goes into the pool station, we have no idea who's getting it, how it's being used, and it still wasn't addressing, I was still seeing the need, especially for pre-K. And Dana Looker, who in 2021 wanted to open a brick and mortar bookstore in Coatesville, and she had found out about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library that gives books to children from birth to age 5. So yes, from birth to
That's
age
what I was
5. I knew you were going that,
I knew.
I just take the long road to
That's
get
okay.
It is a long and winding road here. And again, she went to all the bigger organizations and said, will you do this? And they're like, no, because it's actually free for every child to get it, but it costs the nonprofit. You have to have a nonprofit organization to power it, and it costs $2.20 per child per book each month. And we rounded up to $2.50 because we also pay for all the administration. We have an administration director and all the printing of the postcards and all of that the cost to do this. And again, she went to all the bigger organizations and they said, no, no, no. And someone said, oh, well, you need to go talk to that Jan Michener at AHHAH. She's that book lady. and I problem with saying no. So when she came to me, I said yes. And my board said, what? We had a fundraiser and we raised $25,000. So we were able to start the program. And it's reached out in first 9 months, we had over 630 children registered in Coatesville because we started with just one zip code, 19320. And then, of course, everything we do in Coatesville, people in Kennett say, well, we want it too. And so the Chris Manna at the new Coatesville Kennett Library and Resource Center said, well, can we have it in Chester County? Luckily, we have, I call it our saint that watches over us is Lori Cushman from Justamere Foundation. And I went to her and I said, Lori, would you help fund, the Chester County Imagination Library for the whole community? And then I said, but I have a bigger ask. Will you do it for 5 years so we can measure the impact over 5 years of children, from birth? Because we also went to the Chester County Hospital and Penn Medicine and said, will you help us register children right from birth or a week later if the mom is a little bit too busy that first day, in registering for the Imagination Library so we can see what is the impact of children getting it just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years,
Right.
or all the way from birth, of of closing the word gap, increasing literacy ability, literacy readiness. We're not wanting kids to read by kindergarten, but having the literacy readiness of the sounds and the words. And also, we do the enrichment programs. That's all volunteers as well. I know it's crazy. It's who is this woman? But it's about how to bond through the books, and all of the Dolly Parton books honor social emotional learning and diversity. And it's about creating and cultivating the communities of caring and kindness. And scientific research has shown reading to a child right from birth increases the bonding, increases their language, the wiring of their brains. And so we do read alouds, and we started a book club for 2, 3, 4 year olds. And now I'm working with a group, it's again volunteers, of doing a bilingual YouTube um, uh, uh, recordings of the bilingual books, and working with different organizations that serve the ESL learners, because we know a lot of our little children and also the teenagers, because I'm working with them being the reading buddies of ESL families, can't come to the library during the day because they're helping take care of their younger siblings. So we want to work with them, being helping to record, but also we have science of reading consultants that are volunteers with AHHAH that works with them on how to read to younger children, which increases their literacy skills and takes away of the stigma that they're reading a child's book.
Oh,
So
I
it's
love it.
all about, it's looking at the big picture of how do we come together as uh, a loving support. And I always say, when you're working with communities of poverty, and that the safety nets that have been in place are so full of holes, and so many people are falling through. And so what I want to do is create this giant basket of love. And when a child falls into our basket, or sometimes jumps in, and instead of falling through with the holes of the safety net, we have a trampoline there. And when they fall in, instead of falling through, we launch them into a new trajectory of love and support and hope.
That's awesome. One thing on that, and then I have another question. first of all, I've actually seen the books that are given to the children, and I love the fact that they have like a parental guide teaching the caregiver how to present or how to like to ask questions to help that development. So they're just not leaving the caregiver like, okay, what do I do now? They help guide that experience. So I really appreciate with that those books.
And it's what I love too, what you just said, Stormy. It's especially too at this age. It's not about reading it through, it's about the asking the questions. Because when we ask the questions, one, it's also increasing helping them think. And it's also a lot of them are about emotions. So how does this make you feel? What do you think this person, this character is feeling? Which is building the empathy, and it's about what colors do you see here? Oh, well, can you find the colors, around us? It's about building that mindfulness, the present moment of what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's on the youngest side. Let's move up the spectrum. Who's your next range? Is that elementary, middle, high, or high school? What's next on the timeline?
The programs that we AHHAH specifically does is moving on up to middle school and high school because uh, those are the predominant age of youth that are incarcerated. And where I started my very first class workshop was a trauma sensitive yoga class at the Chester County Youth Center, which in 2013 was housed the detention center for boys and girls 10 to 18. Majority of the kids at the time were 13 to 18. We do have kids at 10 years old now. There was also a shelter for homeless and abused girls there. That's where we did get more girls at 10, starting at 10. And then there was also the Evening Report Center. And we started, this is in 2013. Yoga and mindfulness were not buzzwords as they are today. In fact, they were like, oh no, it's a religion, stay away. What are you trying to do? So when I first went in and said I wanted to start a program and that I would do 6 weeks for free to see if it would work, they were like, I don't know, I mean, and but I had done the yoga prison project training, yoga gangster training, yoga behind bars, and I knew um, the philosophy behind it, but I hadn't actually done it. But I also, in my yoga teacher training, invited other people in my training to do this trauma training with me and said, would you volunteer? In yoga, we call it the Siva, being of service, giving back for 6 weeks for us to see, does it have an impact? And luckily I had three other yoga teachers that were interested in doing it with me. And it was amazing. In 6 weeks, they were reporting less restraints were being used, and also the shifting of the mindset of the guards and staff. By the end, the beginning, they were clanging doors, loud talking, walking around. And by the end, they were coming into our circle as well. And, so then I was like, aha, all right, that works. But where my training and where, I wanted to then bring in the second arm of AHHAH, which is the expressive arts. The mindfulness and the movement and the yoga is when you've had trauma, you disassociate from your body. And so this is one is bringing yourself back into your body, and learning skills and techniques to self-regulate. But it's the expressive arts that build the connections, that also by creating your strengths, but finding out you're not alone in your experiences, in your pain, your suffering, and your joy. And it's what builds the bridges that separate us, and knocking down the walls that, say, you there, me here, but let's come together and know that together we can heal and support each other. And when I first said I wanted to do that, but I needed for this to get money, to be paid for it, because I wanted to bring in teaching artists I had trained in Philadelphia, when I was a master teaching artist there for Philadelphia Young Playwrights and Philadelphia Theater Company. And they said, well, you have to create the 6-week lesson plan and present it to Dr. Weaver. And so I went in, and just as I'm doing now, and Dr. Weaver said, Jan, stop. You had me at a hello. Yes, we'll let you try it for 6 weeks. So we have been there now for going on 12 years. We've won national awards for our programs. And we have 3 books out. We partnered with Chester County Futures for our 3rd book of Justice Restored, Writings and Poetry of Youth that are incarcerated. And our therapists worked with Chester County Futures students in Coatesville, Oxford, and Phoenixville, Coatesville, Oxford, Kennett Square. And we brought the pieces written by youth that are incarcerated, and the CCF students picked the one that impacted them and drew the illustrations. And those are the illustrations in our 3rd edition of the book, Justice Restored 3.0. And we have a traveling art exhibit that goes around the county, and people, invite us to have it there. And we have in events bringing the community to see the drawings and to hear the stories, the poems. And then together we ask, what can we do now as a community to change policy and help our youth go from just survival to thriving?
I've had an opportunity to see those pictures and read that book. It is impactful. At the time, my mom had read it and she commented, she goes, wow. She was just like the emotion and the transparency, the students, when they were writing their poems or stories, you could just see they were putting their heart out there for everyone to see. But at the same time, I presume it was very therapeutic for them to put those emotions down and to write about them. And then to see the students actually come alongside and illustrate them, taking those words and making them into art. Not that words are art, but just the complementary um, positioning of the two together.
And what we share in our workshops, both our writing workshops, our visual arts workshop, and now our filmmaking workshop, is we believe everyone has a story, and youth who have impacted by trauma and the carceral system is trauma. Is we say, if you will share your authentic story, we will make sure your voices are heard, your story is seen, which is so powerful. It's giving them agency. And we also share, your past does not have to define your future. And I cannot tell you how many youth that we work with at the Chester County Youth Center that are in detention that say, Miss Jan, when I get out of here, I want to come work for AHHAH. And I tell them, I will find a place for you in our organization. And that is why 2 years ago, now going on 3, is because after, it's 2013 when I started AHHAH. I thought it was a urban legend that, for-profit prisons looked at 3rd grade reading levels to decide where they'll put the next prison in 10 years. Well, now that I've been doing this for going on 12 years, it's not an urban legend, it's reality. And I realize it's and what I'm told and seen, it's very easy to enter the system. It's very hard to get out. And that, youth come in usually for a low level. Sometimes it's just truancy. They don't, it's they don't feel safe in school, or they can't learn in school. They can't read, and they don't go to school. And then we, instead of getting the help they need, many times they're put into detention center. And then once you get in, it's a revolving door that once they go back, they're going back to the same situation that allowed them to be there in the first place. So I said, we need some programs in the community for the youth that, because they're saying, we want to come and be part of your program. So through 2 years, 3 years ago, December 2023, whatever, January 2023, whatever, I went to the Chester County Probation Office, two people I had worked with when we had the evening report center. And I said, what if, because this is,
Jan
uh,
talking. What is?
it's like Elmo from Sesame Street is my hero, where it's like, I wonder, how do we stop this? That's the revolving door. What if we started a filmmaking program for youth in Coastville? Well, let's try. And so I went to Jason and Lindsay and said, what do you think? Would you help us find some youth on probation that you think would be interested in doing this? And then I went to CJ Witherspoon and Dan Ben Yoakum at the Chester County Creative Club. And I said, would you be interested? Now, I have no money, so this is all going to be volunteer right now. But what if we start a filmmaking program for youth on probation? Would you help us do this? Because they were just starting out, and they said yes. And then our second workshop, I said, well, let's bring in experts. Let's just do it for 10 weeks and see. I don't, I always say, give me 10 weeks. I don't know if it'll work or not. It's just an idea. Let's see what happens. And we brought in guest teaching artists every week, because I wanted them to learn the skills of media, of filmmaking, of lighting, of sound, all the different elements that go into filmmaking. And I love our second week is Sandrine de Bruinge of the 20 Men Race Project, amazing photographer, was our guest artist, photographer. And what I love is she's never left since. And is after 10 weeks, all the youth had completed their community service hours. And they said, can we continue? And Lindsay with the probation office says, that has never happened.
Wow.
And so we did 10 more weeks, 20 weeks. And then I went to Deb Macarelli, the director of the Chester County Youth Center, and said, can we have Restored to Justice open house at CCYC and show, we started thinking about, what if we make a short documentary called Invisible No More, and to bring the voices of the youth, because the books, are wonderful, but they only were meeting a small audience. And we know media and TV and YouTube has a much bigger audience.
Yeah.
And we really wanted these voices of the youth to be heard, and these youth to be seen for something more than the mistakes that got them there. And so we had an open house at CCYC, had pictures, and they had created a little, I called it the teaser then for Invisible No More. We had over 125 people from the community come to see what they're doing. And then we're like, okay, now let's really work on this documentary. And again, this whole program was volunteer. I mean, the space, my teachers, the facilitators. I mean, because it's we've gotten funding for the Imagination Library. People want to help pay for books and for little kids, but finding funding for youth that have been in the system is very difficult. And but what I love with all my heart is everyone that's been part of this project and the impact it has had on the youth. We created a 9-minute trailer for the documentary that we're going to shoot this year. And we did finally we got Pico Powering the Art, a $7,500 grant last year that helped us pay for, because I wanted to be seen even bigger. We had our second restorative justice open house at Uptown Canal Performing Arts Center in Westchester. And we had 125 more people come out to see it. And it had such a big impact. We were then asked to share it in State College at the Pennsylvania Police Chiefs Annual Council in September to 125 police chiefs in Pennsylvania who were so blown away by what the youth have created. And they picked 3 pillars for the trailer. The impact on the juvenile carceral system, on mental health, the impact on relationships, both in their families, in the community, and in their schools, and the impact of the filmmaking program of having people that believe in them and trust them on their lives, and how their new trajectory of where they're going and their goals. It's so powerful that now this is our 3rd year, and we just now got additional funding that we're now going to be able to pay to bring the youth into different studios. We're talking to different real media studios that have the big cameras and the lighting and the microphones, and also people that can give and show the skills for what we need, and real editing, because all the editing was done on our computers, and for the documentary we want to make now, we need professional equipment, and now we're going to be able to do that. But the volunteers that were there before are still the core of the program.
That's awesome. So there's volunteers at every segment of your journey. How many volunteers do you think? Like, how many would you say?
I, well, of the core,
The core?
of the core of I call them the head volunteers. There's probably between 25 and 30.
Okay.
And then on the outreach of to actually run the programs, and the outreach of bringing in more, we have over 9,300 children registered in 2 years right now for the Imagination Library. And we're working now with the Senate and the House, and they've launched proposals to expand it statewide. So we're reaching out for across the
So
state.
you're gonna have lots of volunteers.
It's hundreds. And I just Dana Looker, who is our administrative director for the Imagination Library, and Lori Cushman and I and Lauren Wirt, who is the Dolly Parton Imagination Foundation regional director. We were presenters 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Time flies, who's counting? In Harrisburg for the Pennsylvania Library Council's annual conference. And our presentation theme was the statewide expansion of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library as a link to dismantling the cradle to prison pipeline.
Awesome.
So how it all, is all interconnected. And it's all about, and what I'm so excited about and also scared to death about. um, and I'll share the other program that also started out as volunteers, our Step Up, Step Out, Make a Difference program for girls in Coatesville. Originally, it was for girls in 8th to 12th grade, and now we've moved it in including 7th to 12th grade. And it's an after-school program run this year is at the Coatesville YMCA. And it's a 30-week empowerment, wellness, leadership training for girls in Coatesville. And every girl that joins the program receives a free membership to the Y, not only just for them, but for their family as well. And this was also started 2 years ago when one of our board members said, Jan, we need to do something for girls in Coatesville because the girls in Coatesville are fighting. And I was like, Oni, didn't you just hear the board said I'm not to start another thing? I'm spread too thin. And she goes, I know, but I'm on the board now and I say we need to do this. And the next day I went to teach a program at the detention center, and we had 4 new girls in detention, and they were all from Coatesville. So I called Oni and I said, okay, Oni, we're going to do a program for girls in Coatesville because girls in Coatesville are fighting. So we presented a presentation for the Alliance for Equity and Health on Talking Community Solutions about our idea about this Step Up, Step Out, Make a Difference program. And we came in second place. We got $750. And I said, okay, we can do a 5-week summer think tank. I want to reach out to girls in Coatesville. We'll offer them $100 to be part of our think tank to find out why they think this narrative is there and what is happening and what do they need to change that narrative, to change the mindset, to go from surviving to thriving to being leaders in the community. And I thought, well, we'll get 5 girls, and that's $100. That's 500. We have $250 to buy snacks, and for this 5 weeks. Well, we had 12 girls.
Oh, wow.
For our summer think tank. We asked them, and then we listened. Mm-hmm. And we took notes. And from that, we created a 30-week after-school program last year that we piloted last year. And it's a 3-year pilot. And we started with 10 girls. We ended with 6 girls. Those girls now are our paid assistants this year. We've now doubled. We have over 15 girls right now, but we also, what I call it, is the wise women of the circle, and it's a restorative practice. We're in a circle. It is girl-driven, youth-driven, but we're there to give the supports, the guidance, and the skills that they need to do, to move forward. And the first 10 weeks is the self-care, wellness, resilience training. The second 10 weeks is the team building leadership training. And the third 10 weeks is the community service, where they pick what issue they want to create a project to give back to the community, to open dialogue in the community. And what we're doing is we're taking what the girls last year said was the issues, and they couldn't pick on one issue. They picked 5 that are important for them to give voice to in the community for change. And these were girls at the time in 8th and 9th grade were the 6 girls that ended up completing the program that are now 9th and 10th grade girls. But what they said were what they want to create a program and dialogue in the community around is the broken education system that leads to the broken carceral system, the broken healthcare system, especially around mental health and the stigma around even asking for help for mental health, is the anti-racism, uh, or it's the issues around racism, especially of Black girls in schools and how they're viewed. And then the fifth was the disparity of the distribution of wealth. And they said it's not a war on poverty, it's a war on poor people. And yeah, and I mean, they're so wise. And one thing they're doing is that's one reason also we opened it this year to seventh graders. They shared the challenge of eighth grade. And they said the first week we met, where it was still eighth to 12th grade, they go, what if we opened this program to seventh grade girls and brought them in so they could be getting the tools now? And then when they enter eighth grade in the high school, we're there already as their peer support. I was
Oh,
like,
awesome.
let's do it, you know? I
Mhm.
mean, it's like I love them so much. And going back, what we're doing, what I'm very excited about, and I'm also very nervous about, is on November 7th, AHA will be having our first restorative circle in Coatesville. And it will be at the Coatesville City Hall. We're working with Roberta Cosatina of the Coatesville City Council. We will be screening the trailer for the Invisible No More. We'll be having several of our youth that are from Coastville that are in the filmmaking program, and also we'll be inviting girls from our SUSO program to be there to open dialogue in the community using restorative practices of the circle of first seeing the trailer that uh, talks about the impact of what is happening in the community on mental health and relationships, and then asking the community, is what does this make you feel? What does it make you think? What action does it make you want to do to take action for change? But it's opening it up for let's come together to as a community to heal. What do we need to do as a community to heal together? And it's not coming in and saying we have the answers, because we don't. you know it's the challenges are too big for one organization. It's about, let us come together, you know as we all have our gifts, we all have our strengths, and we also have our pains and our suffering. How can we heal together?
So, with that, can you share? I'm going to hold you to one. And I know that's hard. One story of impact, direct impact from something you're doing and you're seeing transformation in an individual or a group's life. We've touched on the variety thing, but can you just share one?
uh,
I know
um,
there's so many.
there's so many, and I can say from each group, I can share for my filmmaking, and I will even, Lee came in last year, and I do, energy exercises. We do tapping, and it's about, waking up, our, it's well, I'm not going to go on what the
Yeah,
tapping
yeah.
is all of that. But it was like Lee was like, "Whoa, what is this crazy woman doing?" And he came in with a lot of anger, and a lot of hurt. And he was like, "When is it 6:30? I'm out of here," um, and when we finished the 10, they come in with 10 weeks of it's the community service hours. And I, up until then, everyone who has started continue the program. And I was like, I don't know if Lee is going, he may be the one that does it. And there was a shift. And Lee is our lead photographer now, and he's been hired. We even have they did an interview with him that was shared with the police chiefs, where he specifically shared the impact on his life on this program, and what the difference of once he had a camera in his hand, but also knowing that we are family. And one of my girls said, "We're not going anywhere. We are family. We're sticking together." You know, and these are kids that had no one in their corner, many kids, and know that we are there. We'll be in their corner forever.
That's amazing. That's awesome. All right. 60 seconds or less. Why do you volunteer?
I volunteer because it fills my heart. And it's like I always say, if it wasn't for the grace of God, I would be in the shoes there also. And that we all have something to offer. And it's not, it's not about the money, it's about the gift of the heart, is what gives me the fuel to keep going. For 8 years, I didn't take a dime. I put all of my money into the training, into giving back. And it's for the rewards of seeing that it does make a difference.
All right, Jan. This is my fun question. I think everyone enjoys it, so you let me know. Can you share a blooper? It doesn't mean something went wrong, it just didn't go as planned. And what did you learn from
Oh, my life is full of bloopers.
it?
My mouth. um, a blooper is for me is when I didn't practice mindfulness and didn't pause and breathe. And it's like when my button would be pushed and I would just spiel out what was on the top of my mind, and then afterwards realize, oh my God, what have I done? And what it did was made me realize that mindfulness uh, isn't something you just learn once and then do it. It's as one of my girls at the shelter said, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes possibilities.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate that. All right, dear, we are at the end of our conversation, and I know my listeners have learned so much and just can't wait to get involved. So I'm going to give you the microphone, and I want you to love capital love letters LOVE on AHA, and just something we didn't cover, something you want people to get involved with, a shout out to someone. You have the floor.
I love it. I love it. It's AHA. We do pay our facilitators, but it's we grow with volunteers. One, I need more board members. I need board members from the communities that we serve. I need board members that are skilled in um, you know, building connections and human resource and marketing, because we are at a turning point, and the only way that we will grow and continue to grow is with the help of experts. And I'm the first to say I need guidance because of my mouth, but also look at our programs. What program touches your heart? Is it our literacy program for for the preschool? Because we also are looking for, readers for the children. Before COVID, we had the senior readers at Head Start, and we do programs at different schools and libraries. That's all volunteer. But is it also we need we need film equipment, we have a music program with Kids at Concern for Kids. I need music instruments that are gently loved but still work. Your kid maybe started a guitar and then 3 weeks later said, I don't want that, you know. So we need volunteers to help us, and in-kind donations. So books, children's books, but people that will do um, the book drives, but then also will help labels and become stewards of the different. And then people are still asking us, will we build a free little lending library with them? So we need people that are builders, and we have one of our Scouts did the manual of how to. So we'll help you, give you the guidance, but it's if you can do it.
Oh, that's awesome. We will put in the show notes how to find you. So we'll put in your website and whatever other information you want us to, an email address, just however people can find out more about you and to how to get involved. So thank you, Jan.
Thank you. I love volunteers to come and join our basket of love.
That's awesome. I've had the privilege of knowing you for a while, so I knew most, not all, but most of what you're involved with. And I just can tell you that I can speak to the work that you're doing in the community and the results that are not the results in like a data point, but more just the lives that are being impacted and the positive outcomes that we are seeing as the result of your work. So I want to thank you for all that you're doing. So
Thank you, Stormy, and thank you for inviting me to share with you.
I appreciate that. All right, my listeners, I want to thank you for listening in on today's conversation. I know that you enjoyed it as much as I did. So if you found value in it, please rate and review it wherever you're listening. It helps other people hear about what's going on in our communities, and together we can help restore the fabric of our society. So thank you, and I'll see you next time on The Art of Volunteering. Have a great day.